Hi, I'm Kara, life coach, wife, and mom to 4 incredible and unique children. It wasn't all that long ago that my son received a diagnosis that had my world come crashing down. I lacked the ability to see past the circumstances, which felt impossible, and the dreams I once had for my life and family felt destroyed. Fast forward past many years of surviving and not at all thriving, and you'll see a mom who trusts that she can handle anything that comes her way and has access to the power and confidence that once felt so lacking. I created the Special Needs Mom podcast to create connection and community with moms who find themselves feeling trapped and with no one who really understands. My intention is to spark the flare of possibility in your own life and rekindle your ability to dream. This isn't a podcast about your special needs child. This is a podcast about you. If you are a mom who feels anxious, alone, or stuck, then you are in the right place. Welcome. Hello and welcome to the Special Needs Mom podcast. And welcome to the Summer Sabbath series. In the Summer Sabbath series, we are pulling episodes from way back in the past, blasts from the past. We're bringing them up to you because it's very likely that you didn't go back and listen to the full catalog of episodes. And some of them are just so well loved and so stinking good that I was like, hey, let's pull them up, have you listen to them as if they were new to you, because they will be. And it gives us an opportunity to honestly get our feet underneath us a little bit. Both Andy and I are special needs parents. And, the end of the school year kind of rocked our worlds a little bit. So we're using this to rest. We are actively resting. Well, actually, Andy's not right now. She is, at the time I'm recording this, she's preparing to take some time off. So she's clearly not resting right now, but she's preparing to rest, kind of making some space. And I am going to be actually resting with Alex, our editor. I'm going to go up to her house where she lives and out of state. And I'm very excited about it. And my daughter is super, super duper excited. They're like best friends because Alex, you might not know this, Alex was previously our family's nanny for years. So she's kind of like family now. And she's family to you because she is behind the scenes making these episodes possible for you. Okay, now on the episode. So this is a part 1 of a 2-part series. It's not really a series. Like the episodes could totally stand alone. But when I created them, I had this kind of 2-part concept as I was preparing them. So as I look at the outline for this episode, preparing for the reintroduction, I noticed, I was like, wow, I put a lot of energy, into these episodes in a good way. Wow. So there's a lot here. And these ones might take like a couple listens because there's so much, not nuance. What's the word? The distinction between the things I'm talking about is so subtle. Sometimes we don't even notice it. And I'm really talking about particular skills in really ultimately what it takes to really transform your life. And one thing I want to mention before I send you off into the episode is that I think I talk about it in the episode. I have it in my notes that I wrote, is that one of the things that inspired this episode was an email that came from a client that I was working with at the time who totally transformed her life during the duration of the coaching program she did alongside me and her cohort. And it's just so amazing seeing what the women do that say yes to whatever it is, whether it's individual coaching or group coaching, to have them step into this engagement of, I am going to change this experience. So proud of her still. Now, let me send you in the episode. Enjoy. Here we are today, and I thought I'd start this episode off with a little bit of I don't know why the word or the concept, the State of the Union, keeps coming to my mind, but I thought, I'm just going to kind of check in with like how this community is doing. And I know that I love this time of year, actually. I really love the transition from summer to fall. And there's something, it's funny. I live in Southern California. So, we really have to pay attention to these slight shifts because, we kind of don't really have seasons here. We do, but not like really amazing ones like all y'all that are back east have. But we have what we have. And so we have to kind of figure out how to be noticing the shifts. And for me, there's something about the way that the sun shifts come around September and October that it just gets to be a little bit less intense And it's still really warm. Like September and October actually can be some of our warmest months. But there's something about like, then we get the cool evenings that, I don't know, it just shifts something for me. And for me, there's this experience of kind of a coming home or a rest, even though clearly, starting back up to school is not a restful time. There's just something about this time. And so I really am savoring it and really looking forward to it I've noticed that there's like a longing. I'm curious if you all are experiencing that as well. And I also wonder if I was thinking like summer, I feel like the word that comes to my mind is chaotic, right? It's like everyone has a different schedule, all of the, between if your child's an extended school year, like the different bus schedule, the different years. Sorry if you can hear my sweet dog's collar jangling in the background. Apparently she's very itchy. But it's like, right. So it's like chaotic. There's just stuff going on everywhere. There's no order. We're taking vacations here and there. And I feel like there's this almost like this, I don't know. I just have this picture where it's like before things settled, things feel really crazy. And I feel like we're in that time right now. I know I'm experiencing that. So like I said, my kids go back to school this week. They go back on Wednesday. And for myself, I'm just noticing there's so much energy, not necessarily bad, but I'm just noticing a heightened sensitivity. I'm noticing a higher desire to control things. Like for me, that looks like being really, 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 really prepared so that everything goes well. And well, that sounds pretty great. It's a red flag for me saying, oh, interesting. What am I maybe trying to prevent or control that maybe is underneath that I'm not yet aware of? So I'm kind of just being curious about it. Also noticing there's like a lot of big emotions for me with my kids going back to school. So I have a son starting high school and then a daughter starting kindergarten. I know, it's kind of crazy, right? And so there's these new beginnings that also more so my kindergartner has a lot of emotions about, right? Excitement, nervousness, newness, transition. And also what I'm noticing is, or reflecting on really is this time last year was right about the time where we learned that we were going to be dealing with a whole nother round of tumors, right? Where we hadn't dealt with this thing for 10 years. We'd just been living with the impact of it. And now we had chapter 2. And chapter 2 was not welcome. Chapter 2 was really scary. And so this entire last year, I'm like, wow, like it was a year ago. We've been doing this now for a year. And I do feel like we are in recovery. I feel like it feels behind us. However, as you know, these experiences change us. And so I feel like, if I'm going to kind of just look at the state of the union, looking at reflecting and how it's in my life, I think I'm in the becoming of it where it's almost like actually it's like a labor. So if an unmedicated childbirth, which I know many of you did not have the opportunity to have, but there's this time called transition where after a mother is laboring, she transitions to being basically ready to give birth. And usually in this time, emotionally, she's saying, I can't do it. It's the end. This is impossible. Basically, it's like, it's getting real bad. And then I've had the experience because I was like crazy enough to do like natural childbirth 3 times. And then I was like, you know what? After that, I was like, that was great, but I'm going to get an epidural this time around, which I think is funny because it was truly an amazing experience. Anyhow, that is besides the point. After transition, you have this, for me, my experience, and I know not everyone's is like this. It was like this euphoric, like pure ability to do this thing. And it was a hard thing, right? Like I had big babies, so there's that. And then of course the experience afterwards with all the beautiful hormones rushing in your body and all the things. But I feel like, so if I'm going to kind of compare where this community is at, it's like we've gone through summer where it's chaotic. We're all coming together now, whether you're starting school next week or you're already a week in. There's this coming together where it's maybe not yet feeling great. It's still feeling in that point where like, oh my gosh, this got hot fast. Like this really heated up. And so I call that like the becoming. We're still in the process of kind of settling in to the new rhythm. So I'm curious if you relate to that, or if you would say, wow, that actually helps me understand the experience I'm having right now. So that's kind of the state of the union, the state of the community, if you will, or maybe just the state of my community and my family. But my guess is y'all will relate to that. So today I wanted to kind of talk about a simple concept. And it's inspired actually by an email I got from a past client where she was just sharing, hey, like there's just this thing that I wanted to share because it helped me so much this week. It was a really hard week. And having access to this tool, essentially, this awareness tool and this ability to kind of see things differently really made all the difference. I want to point out that it did not make the hard go away. Like it was still hard, but the shift gave her access to not feeling like a victim, which is really powerful. And so we're going to be talking today about, I'm calling it kind of let go of being a victim. And we're going to really highlight this today. In a coming episode, I'm going to kind of do part 2. So it's going to leave you hanging a little bit, but that's okay. I think it's great to take this slow because I want to kind of give you advance notice that some of the things I say in this episode aren't going to click right away. You're going to be like, wait, what do you mean? And that's okay. But when they click, you're going to be like, oh, I see it now. It's almost like, I don't know, there was like these, when I was a kid, there was like these posters where, you'd look at them and they just look like a bunch of random things. And then if like you tweak your eyes a certain way, like an image pops out at you. I could never really do them actually, which is funny that I'm using them as this example. But when you see them, you almost can't unsee them. So some of the concepts are going to maybe feel like that. And that's okay. What I want you just to do is just to wonder, okay, what am I missing? And what maybe am I resistant to seeing? Because really this interesting thing about the concept today is kind of looking again, being a victim is oftentimes when we're coming from that place, it allows us to, in some ways, quote unquote, stay safe. Because if we are not the problem, the thing outside of us is the problem, then clearly it's not our fault and we're just doing the best we can. And I know we are all doing the best we can, but that's not what we're talking about today. So like I said, we're going to talk about kind of looking at comparing being at choice or being at cause, which is kind of coachy language, but it's really coming from a position or relationship of power, an ability, a belief that you actually have a say. Versus, and this is where we're going to be going deeper today, is kind of being what we would call being at effect, right? So like cause and effect. Something happens and then it happens to you, or otherwise said as being a victim. So we're going to look at several points. I think there are 7 that will help you see. I've kind of designed them as, hey, these are kind of red flags to say, hey, I'm having that experience. How might I be relating to this situation or event in a way that has me basically being a victim? So let's get into the list. So the first one is you feel powerless and helpless. My guess is almost all of you are like, yeah, definitely. And I guess I want to back up for a second because I was going to say this after the list, but I think it's a good thing to put in ahead, is that this list is likely going to be confronting because you're going to say, oh my gosh, that's me all the time. I know, me too. And so that's not the point. The point is not kind of being like, oh my gosh, I'm a problem. I'm doing all this. Something's wrong with me. It's really just, again, to notice, oh, interesting. I'm feeling powerless. And that feeling of feeling powerless is just your cue to dissect how you're relating to the situation that has you feeling powerless. And we're not going to go over that part in this episode. It will come in a future episode. And that's, of course, what we work on in coaching, is learning to dissect and determine the difference between your relationship to the problem and the problem, quote unquote, the problem. So that would also be said as like your interpretation of the facts. So let's go back to the list. Likely you are being a victim if you feel powerless and helpless. Another one is that you try to fix. This comes out a lot, I see, in moms that have an early diagnosis or a diagnosis. I think it happens a lot with kids that are on the spectrum. And I think because there's so much different information about how to support your child. And by all means, this is not saying we're not going to support our children. But there's a difference in energy when you're trying to fix somebody. Because usually it looks like this. You're trying to fix somebody because if they were better, you also would feel better, right? Like you are at the impact of them having these disabilities or conditions. So you might be trying to fix your child. You might be trying to fix yourself, kind of saying, oh, if only I weren't so disorganized, I don't know, your life would be better. You also might be trying to fix your spouse or other relationships. If only that organization was more competent, you would be better. If your husband was participating more, you would be better. And so the difference here is it's trying to fix something that's wrong, coming from the underlying belief that if that thing was different, you would feel better. And it's just not true. Because if that thing were different, we'd have another thing that might be causing some pain or struggle in our life. And so that actually, it's almost like it's this unwinnable battle because there's so many things we would need to fix in order to feel better. And you see how it's like a bottomless pit. So yes, by all means, we want to help and support the people we love. However, fixing them and coming from that energy is just off the mark. Third thing, reasons and excuses will flow easily. This happens it's like when we're in this space, it's so hard to recognize it. And then as when somebody helps reflect it to us, it becomes so obvious. So this might sound like, I can't exercise because, and whatever you're going to say, I don't have time, I don't have a babysitter, I don't have anywhere to exercise. I don't know. But that's the energy of kind of more excuses and saying, I can't. Another one might be, I can't get more help because could be, I can't afford it. Could be nobody can help my child like I do. Could be, I live too far away and it's impossible. I don't know. I mean, there's endless reasons, obviously. Just something to notice. When excuses or reasons why you can't flow easily, it's an opportunity to reflect. Number 4, forcing and controlling energy. This also can show up as waiting or running. Waiting, right? It's such a passive way of kind of being at the effect of something else. This one can be related to, or can often be reinforced by getting buy-in from others. And this will look like getting reinforcement that yes, that doctor is awful. Yes, that hospital is corrupt. I don't know. Yes, the system is broken. Yeah, nobody understands us. This kind of stuff. And so from that energy, likely we're going to become very forceful, right, to fix what is wrong. And we're going to come from a controlling energy. We're going to kind of try to make them do what is right versus coming from an energy that actually feels better for you. Because I would say many of us love this control. Me too. My hand is raised here. Love is not the right word. I often lean on the controlling energy because often it gives me access to feeling more powerful than not. Not a good kind of power, because oftentimes people will feel scared of you in this energy, which for some of you are like, well, that's better than not having any power. And I agree. But what I'm suggesting is there's actually more available to you if you're willing to reflect on this piece. Okay. Number 5, seeking advice or looking for rescue. So this one is really looking for the power outside of yourself, that you are at the effect of everybody else knowing more than you do, or you not being able to trust yourself. So the seeking advice is often delegating power to somebody else, which is a kind of a backwards way of also coming from that victim or being at the effect of other people's energy, right? Because it's like if someone said to do this and you do this thing and it didn't work, they were wrong, not you. Number 6, there's little joy and satisfaction. This one really comes from because when you're coming from this victim place, the things that are happening around you are kind of happening to you. This goes for the hard things and the good things. So when something good happens and it comes to you, it's almost just like random. It either happens or it doesn't. You have no access to actually to seeing why or how that was created, because it kind of just freakishly all happened. It all like mysteriously lined up and you felt satisfied, or you felt a little spark of joy, or you felt a little moment of peace. And so oftentimes, because we're so unable to participate in actively creating this, it doesn't happen often. And when it does, we feel like we have to hold on to that. The last one is what I call have to energy. This is also when you have a very fixed way that something has to get done. It feels like there's no choice. You're relating to something as like you don't even question whether you have to do it. And which is really funny because there's so many things that we think we have to do, or things that we feel like are done to us, that if we stand back and reflect and recognize, we actually have a lot of choice in the matter. And this is going to kind of lead us into the next part of the conversation. When we recognize we actually have choice in the matter, and that's actually the shift here. When we make that simple recognition that we have choice, that completely changes the way we're relating to what's happening and shifts us from being a victim to coming from a place where we can call it being at choice or being at cause. And I like the one being at cause because it's like suggesting that you are causing something or creating something. Now, I want to stand back for a second and just kind of say, okay, this list, like I said, there's a lot there. There's a lot of things that my guess is you're like, yeah, I do all of that and I do it a lot. So here's the first thing, and the thing I want you to hear most. Do not use this list against you. The only reason why this list is valuable is it gives us an opportunity to reflect on where we might be leaking out the experience we want in life. So first, and if this is all you do, I'm okay with that. First is love and compassion. What that looks like is looking at you showing up in all these ways and saying, Kara, I see you. I know it's hard. I love you. It's okay. Let's look at this together. Let's see what we can shift. So that's just an example of like relating to yourself as somebody that's whole and capable and nothing wrong, but has some opportunity. So like I said, the point is awareness, not blame. So don't use this list against yourself. Use it to create some awareness. So I wanted to give you an example of how this actually might play out in your life. So this is kind of all concept, right? I know. I told you it was going to be a lot for your mind to kind of soak in. So let's look at an example. And your example is likely going to be very different. I'm using a really super specific example And so yours, you can fill in the blank, because what's funny about the example is it doesn't really matter what it is. It exposes the relationship we have to the thing. So your example might be your child's meltdowns. Maybe it's taking them to therapy. Maybe it's their behavior in public. Maybe it's toileting or showering your child that just gets you and triggers you and just shifts you into this like awful experience of feeling like I have to, I don't want to, this is the worst, it shouldn't be so hard, right? So the example I'm going to use is, and it's one that often triggers me, is my son has an SMO, which is similar to an AFO, ankle foot orthotic. I can never remember what the SMO stands for, but it's shorter. And he's, he has this thing for his foot. It's supposed to help him. So, and he doesn't like to wear it. He just, I don't know why. I can't really understand it. We don't get a consistent answer. But I want to point out that this is not about my son. This example is about my relationship to how I show up when it comes to this device. So what I noticed when I just did a quick reflection is I want him to wear it because I'm afraid that if he doesn't, then his foot will get worse and it will cause him more pain. So I'm going to kind of put this under the classification of like trying to fix it. Like there's this thing that's part of his body, and I feel like if I don't fix it, something scary is going to happen. Maybe it will. I don't know. But coming from that energy, it's like it becomes this, wearing this thing becomes so important. It becomes the things I'm fixated in. I really have to force it from that place. Do you see how it shifts into that forceful kind of energy? Because coming from the place of if he doesn't wear it, then like it's kind of a threatening kind of situation. The second reason is I wanted to wear it because I went significantly out of my way to get it for him. Right? Like I worked hard to get that little device for him. So therefore he should wear it. And again, you see how it's one, it's all about me. And two, it's like, he has to wear it. Like, that's just like, there's no choice in the matter. Like, this is what should be. This is what's supposed to happen. Another thing that I notice is I want him to wear it because he should. Like I said, he should wear it. Something else I can notice about this is I do feel very powerless in making him wear it. Like he's beyond the point where I can physically make him. Some of you might still be able to physically make your child do something. And so there's this, basically you see how there's this need to control him or to make it happen kind of from an intellectual kind of a, I can make you because I'm your mom kind of energy, which I can't. And then that actually makes me feel very powerless and very frustrated. And I'm sure you can picture this situation, this like little altercation. And usually those moments are not when I am being my best self. And then I have the impact of, oh gosh, that did not feel good for me. And I'm sure it didn't feel good for him. And just, kind of lastly, I look at the other thing, the things that I notice coming up is like, I have to get it to him to wear it or else. Like, it just feels like it's not always distinguished, but it's like the last one I'm saying, like, I have to do it. I'm sure you can, as I read these examples, I'm sure it was easier for you to see like, yeah, like you feel like the victim of the situation. If this thing is happening to you and you feel powerless, you feel frustrated, you feel like it's really important. I have no options. And of course, then what's interesting is then my son becomes the problem. And you can see how I would start to blame him and start to kind of get angry at him because, again, I'm relating to him as the impediment to the thing that I think is supposed to happen. Now, I want to just kind of check in here because also supporting my son to wear his brace is like, it's a neutral thing. Like I'm committed to doing that. I want to do it, but there's an opportunity to shift my energy, to shift how I'm showing up, to shift who I'm being, that likely will have a very different result for me and maybe for my son too. Okay, so I want to look at some options. So first option is to just become aware of where I'm coming from. That's kind of the first part I just kind of reflected to you. It's really just stepping back and noticing, okay, why am I so attached to this? Why do I think I have to? What if I don't have to? And kind of just stepping back and again, becoming aware. Then I can notice, okay, yeah, I'm definitely relating to this as I'm stuck here. It's a problem. I'm the victim of the situation. I'm the victim of his behavior. And therefore, I then have the opportunity to shift to being a choice. So one of the things here is actually letting go, being like, okay, he actually doesn't have to wear it. He doesn't have to. I want him to. I can acknowledge that, but he doesn't have to wear it. That is not the end goal here. The end goal is actually me serving my son and supporting my son to support him to having his highest opportunity and capacity. Right? And maybe that boot's not part of it. I don't even know, right? The doctors think it is. But when I can step back and say, hey, I actually think this is good, but I'm not sure, it just allows me to shift my energy. And that's what this conversation is about. So instead of forcing him, coming from that forcing and controlling energy, I can actually align with him and partner with him and actually approach him and saying, hey, Levi, I think this thing's going to be really helpful to you. I'm committed to having you wear it. What's a structure that's going to actually support you? Are you willing to wear it for the first hour of the day? Right? And then being able to be receptive and listening to any objections he has and actually listening to them and supporting him through it. And do you see how this shifts into like a very different energy of partnership? And because I'm not so attached to it, it has to be this way, I'm actually available for a very different conversation. Another part here in the awareness is just really noticing when I am upset. Easily this thing can trigger me, and then I become upset because I am forcing this thing. It's becoming responsible for my energy and recognizing I am the one that's creating my feelings. It's not because of what my son's doing, which is so easy to confuse. And I know that part can trip some of us up. But in this situation, I'm really clear. When I'm upset that he's not wearing his boot, it's 100% because of my feelings about this boot. We call it the boot. So as I started to say in the beginning of the episode, it's really about shifting to I choose this versus I have to. And when I shift into that I choose this, then even when it's hard, even when he doesn't want to, even when he refuses, I no longer have to think that, oh, it shouldn't be this way. I'm stuck here. I can actually choose from a place of, yeah, it's hard and that's okay, but this is the hard I'm choosing to engage in. Because obviously, you guys can picture this. I could just walk away and be like, okay, he doesn't have to wear the boot. But I'm choosing to engage in the thing that I think, might be a little bit difficult. It's the same thing, right? When we choose to work out, right? We know it's going to be maybe some like sweat and feel a little discomfort, but we choose to. And because we're choosing to do that, we endure that level of discomfort in a way that actually like we kind of like it, right? Which just sounds kind of funny, right? When you recognize like when you're choosing actively to engage in something that's difficult, it doesn't mean it's not difficult. It just changes the way that you show up during that difficult. So we're going to wrap here. And like I said, I'm leaving you hanging a little bit because I think in our episode that'll be coming out in 2 weeks, I want to focus a little bit more at looking at the alternative way of being that I'm suggesting, kind of the opposite of being at effect, really, in looking at what does it look like to be at cause? How do we, as mothers of children with complex medical diagnoses and disabilities, probably multiple disabilities, how do we step into this new way of being that has us access the experience that we want, firstly for ourselves, but then also I feel so strongly that actually creates the possibility for our children to have it as well. Like the very coachy way of saying is like, we're the clearing, like we're opening the space in the forest to build what we're building. We're paving the path. That's one of the reasons that I am so passionate about changing the way that we as special needs moms show up, is because it doesn't just matter for us. It matters for all the relationships around us. And I think because the love that we have for our children goes so deep, for me, it makes me willing. It's getting me like emotional. It makes me willing to go further and push harder and hurt like I've never hurt before, because it matters to me so much. It's not just about me. So let's pause the conversation. We will see you next week. And I would actually love to hear from you. If you're like, hey, Kara, that part didn't make sense. I don't understand that. What about this? And what are your objections to this? I think that would be really valuable, because I can, speak to those and one, support you individually, but also bring it back to the podcast. Because if you're wondering this thing, I guarantee another mom's also kind of shaking her head a little bit like, I'm not sure about that. So that's okay. It's beautiful to question and to wonder. So keep it up. You're doing great. We will see you on the next show.